look up into my mind, like help me formulate this thought in a way that people are going to understand. And it comes out accurately. Um, but it comes out at like the speed and almost ferocity of my mind, which has its time and place. But now what I'm literally bringing my focus and attention to bringing my message from my heart, and it's slower. It appears to be more calming, and it feels a lot nicer when I do it. It's funny because I was out. I can't remember went for dinner with someone from the team the other day, and at first I was like, still talking from my mind. And they said that they felt like they had to be alert and sharp and like pay attention. And so that has its time and place, especially as like the CEO of a company. Like, if we need to go do something or something like that, say, okay, call to arms. Like, let's go, let's shift right now. Right. And then I just like shifted the energy, and it was like, everyone could feel it. And so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
It's been really
incredible.
cool.
Yeah, I want to know more about this breakthrough from your head to your heart. Like, is there any more details you can get into about what was it like a moment, just almost like a moment of breakthrough where it just shifted for you, or was it a longer process through this course, or can you give any more details about how that happened?
Yeah, I can. I would say it was like a series of events. And the first one was actually quite like scientific in nature. And it was where I learned about something called sensory neurites. And so, and then I began training heart brain coherence. And so sensory neurites are we have sensory neurites all over our body. They're like the neurons. When like we touch something hot, you react and pull away, and you do that. Like it doesn't send a message to your brain that says that's hot, pull away, or you're going to get burnt. You act before the message even goes, and those are called sensory neurites. They're stents, right? They sense. They sense. I'm doing something on the video right now for people listening, but they sense like things, and I'm touching them.
Yeah.
I'm a real pro. Um, and what they discovered is obviously we it's very common knowledge now about the massive amounts of neural activity going on in the gut. But what they did is they actually found like a cluster, a cluster of about 50,000 of these sensory neurites in the heart. And so scientists have actually coined it the little brain. And it's shown that the heart sends lots of like direct messages right to the brain, boom, right to the brain. And so I have this whole theory on that's actually where I think consciousness comes from. I've got a few different reasons for that. Some scientific, some like more esoteric and spiritual about it. But really bringing my attention to that was really like the first step, I would say. Because that's like, I believe that's where the intuition comes from and all these types of things. So that really helped me as like a foundation, and then different breathwork techniques and different like practices of awareness. Like a lot of people practice heart brain coherence, but they aren't even aware of the sensory neurites. And that's one thing that I've found a lot when talking to people in the spiritual community, is when I'm like, oh, like here's the science behind, like here's what just happened. They're like, oh my God, like I had this breakthrough. And I'm like, yeah. And I break it down, like show them the science, and they're like, wow, like, so it's not just like woo woo, like, there's actually some science behind it. It's actually an explanation. So that was like the first thing. And then I would say that, really like bringing together the Human Potential Academy team, and having them really over the course of months and months, like steering me towards like the heartfelt leadership. And then like while going through my own like awareness journey, and really recognizing like, oh, okay, like this is the trauma from my childhood that's causing me to use my mind and causing me to like maybe be like a little bit short or a little bit brash, or just certain areas like that. And then I went to this Black Sheep Mastermind retreat and had like a series of events, and people helped me with these things. One of them was with this phenomenal intuitive healer coach named Dr. Dibby. She came in as a guest speaker, and it was just like an absolutely magical experience. And she really helped me. Like, she got me into a theta brainwave state. For people that know what that is, it's essentially like a hypnotic state. And she was doing her thing, and it ended up being like a really transformative experience. And I kept grounding in the word grace when I was there, like grace, grace, grace. And after that happened, I went out onto the rock with this other person that was attending there. And she said to me, cause one of the things that I was like struggling with was like, people not listening to my advice for them,
Mm-hmm.
people not hearing my words. Cause I believed that I had some keys that would help them. And I see people that I love struggling, and then they're not listening to what I have to say, and what I have to say is going to help them stop struggling. And I was like, and she just said the words to me, like, cause I was kind of like, I was going through this difficult time, I guess you could say, of like, if I am tailoring my message so that people like the way it sounds, I'm not speaking my real raw expression of it. And I'm actually like manipulating the message so that it's received by them. Right. And I was going through this, like, is that the right thing to do? Is that the wrong thing to do? I don't really know. Cause I went through all these things, like being a salesperson, where I like really learned, like, you know, the dark arts, so to speak, in terms of communication. And then I was really like, okay, like, I don't really want to go down that, like, that route of being able to convince a person of something, like whether they want it or need it or not. Mm-hmm. And so I was really kind of like pulled in this other direction then. And so you could see how I'm sitting in the middle here. And then I came to this kind of conclusion of, it's like, that's why I learned those things. Because what she said to me was, how would it feel if every single time you gave someone advice, their response was something like, oh my goodness, that sounds so good. Can you please tell me more? And I like lived into that experience about how it would feel. And it felt like so good. And so, then I came back to Canada and began integration. And that was pretty much like a 10 to 12 week process, which just seems to come to its conclusion this past Wednesday. Yeah. So like less than a week ago at this point. And like another thing that ended up coming up was a series of events between myself and the team at Human Potential Academy, where we had, like, I don't know what you want to call it, like inevitable friction when you're bringing a whole bunch of people together. The company's moving at a very fast pace. So people are, you know, don't want to get left out of certain things, and all these, just so many different things were coming up. And I honestly was taking on too much. And then because I was taking on too much, I was like, I wasn't telling everyone everything that was going on, but I didn't even have enough time to tell everyone everything that was going on. And I didn't feel that everyone needed to know everything that was going on. And then that's like one of like a handful of other things that came up. And then we kind of went through it all together. And my big like emotional trauma is around being abandoned, being betrayed, because I'm an only child and I'm by myself. And so like, I don't have family, right? Like, I have my mom and my dad, but when I don't have them, I don't have anyone. And so then again, not being accepted as a child by a lot of my peers and all these types of things. And so it was causing me to act in certain types of ways. And I needed to arrive at this place, which is so typical of like a spiritual journey, where it's like, I actually, when we were having like some friction amongst the team, I actually got to this place where I was like, even if, like, say everybody were to quit, which would be just, is not going to happen, I was like, okay with it. And it was like the first time in my life where I was like, oh, like, I'm actually okay with whatever happens. And no matter what happens, I still love these people and I'm still going to support them. And God's got me and I'm going to be okay. Because I have been 100% of the times that I've gone through any sort of abandonment, any sort of breakup, losing friends, relationships, business partners, businesses. I've lost it all before, and I always come out the other end better. And And I could just kind of just arrived at this place where I was like, yeah, like I'm actually okay with losing it all. And then it's like, as soon as that happened, genuinely being okay with it, it just like locked everything in. And it was like, I
Mm.
kind of like, I arrived at this place of like emotional peace and power.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks.
for,
That was great. It was,
yeah.
yeah, that was great.
Thank you. That was great. That was excellent. I really love to hear about your breakthroughs. That course sounds really amazing. I'm definitely going to look into it. It seems almost similar to a course that I took called Next Level, which just like, it's almost like, yeah, you can't even get into it because it's just too, it's like, okay, no, it's too much. I can't, that'll take the whole episode. Um, but there's a few things that you said that I wanted to come back to there.
Yeah.
First thing, okay, this is way back when you started that section of it, was you said once I opened my eyes, and I think
Mm,
you were talking about your almost like a spiritual awakening that you had. You said that you were disconnected from your spirituality until you opened your eyes. I would
mm.
just like to bring it back to that. Is there anything more you can talk about in that area?
Yeah, yeah, I can. So, yeah, kind of like I grew up with like a really vivid imagination. And I think that's like a critical thing for kids to have. And I think it's like seriously something that they're being robbed of right now because they have so many like so much stimulation and they don't need their imagination because of like the quality of video games and all these types of things. But that played a really important part, I believe. And then there was uh, I went to Bible camp when I was younger and wasn't really like, into the whole God thing, but I had the imagination and I could kind of feel like something's going on here. And so I'd pray sometimes, but it was typical kid type praying, like, God, please give me this thing that I want, right? Please don't let this bad thing happen to me. Just asking for favors instead of asking for like help with whatever it is that he lays out in front. And so I kind of had that thing going on. And then when and I'm just kind of listing out because there was like two like really defining moments out of the five. So I listed two. The third one was when I first started studying neuroscience and training teams. I was also at the time dating someone who was a born again Christian, and she was showing me like the creationist aspect of the neuroscience, and I was looking at all these things, and I was like, oh, okay, like yeah, this is all actually starting to kind of make sense. And then fast forward a few years, a handful of years later, I guess it was about 5 years ago now. And I'd already been formulating my five pillars of human potential theory at this point. And then I had a specific medicine journey that was really unbelievable. And I it was like one of the most real experiences of my life. And after that experience, I did like some research. I realized where I went and what I saw when I was there and who I was talking to when I was there. And it was like I could really start to hear that intuition voice now. And I would play with it. So when I went to Asia, this voice would be like, hey Matt, like, and it was interesting because it's like, hey Matt, if you go out and drink and party and network tonight, it's not going to go well for you. And I'm like, I'm going to do it anyways, right? And then I would go, and it'd be a shit show, of course. And then there'd be other times where he'd be like, I wouldn't want to go, and he'd be like, you should actually go there tonight. And I'd be like, and I'd go, and then it'd be awesome. And I'd just like playing with these different, like, not listening to the voice, listening to the voice, blessings, catastrophe, playing with it, listening to it. And then the final one that really, really kickstarted it for me was when I started exercising calisthenic body workout every single day. So one of my best friends, my best friend Luke, we own the 100 Days of Discipline together now as a byproduct of it. I was pretty much off of like one of the most ridiculous New Year's Eves I've ever had. And it was like January 2nd, I was hungover, January 3rd, January 4th, like still seriously, like went to the hospital. I thought something was wrong. Like, no, January 5th, finally crawled out of my cave, just feeling like you could imagine I'd be feeling. And opened up my phone and there's my friend Luke, and he's on like day 63 out of 100. He's posting every day his account